Have you ever felt like you're living in a crowded world, yet somehow it's getting harder and harder to truly connect with people? You might have hundreds of followers on social media, but a single honest conversation can feel rare. I see this a lot in young people today, and to be completely honest, I have met individuals with great jobs, great looks, thousands of online friends who sit down in front of me and quietly confess, "I don't feel close to anyone." Maybe you felt something similar. A subtle sense of loneliness, like you're standing in a room full of people yet separated by an invisible layer of glass. You hear the noise, the laughter, the conversations, but your heart feels a few steps away for reasons you can't fully explain. Don't blame yourself, it's incredibly common in today's world. I want you to picture this. One afternoon you're sitting in a cafe, the place is full of people but everyone is staring at their phones. No one looks up, no one is truly present. I've seen this scene in Los Angeles, in New York, even inside my own therapy office. One young client once told me, "I can talk to the whole world, but opening up to one person feels impossible." And honestly, that didn't surprise me, because real connection doesn't come from numbers, it comes from presence, sincerity, and the ability to understand yourself before trying to understand anyone else. And that's exactly why I want to talk to you about today's topic. Have you ever felt like you're living in a crowded world, yet somehow it's getting harder and harder to truly connect with people? You might have hundreds of followers on social media, but a single honest conversation can feel rare. I see this a lot in young people today. And to be completely honest, I've met individuals with great jobs, great looks, thousands of online friends who sit down in front of me and quietly confess, "I don't feel close to anyone." Maybe you felt something similar, a subtle sense of loneliness, like you're standing in a room full of people yet separated by an invisible layer of glass. You hear the noise, the laughter, the conversations, but your heart feels a few steps away for reasons you can't fully explain. Don't blame yourself. It's incredibly common in today's world. I want you to picture this. One afternoon, you're sitting in a cafe. The place is full of people, but everyone is staring at their phones. No one looks up. No one is truly present. I've seen this scene in Los Angeles, in New York, even inside my own therapy office. One young client once told me, "I can talk to the whole world, but opening up to one person feels impossible." And honestly, that didn't surprise me. Because real connection doesn't come from numbers, it comes from presence, sincerity, and the ability to understand yourself before trying to understand anyone else. And that's exactly why I want to talk to you about today's topic. 10 ways to connect more deeply with the people around you through the lens of Stoic philosophy. It might sound strange, right? Stoicism, a philosophy people often misunderstand as cold or detached, helping us connect better. But the truth is, Stoics aren't distant, they're grounded. They understand themselves so well that they naturally see others more clearly. I remember a friend once asking me, "Why does every attempt to connect feel awkward?" I told her, "Because you're trying to connect from a place of fear of judgment, not from a place of authenticity." That tiny difference creates a huge gap. Stoic philosophy teaches us to drop unnecessary armor, release expectations, and see people with sincerity instead of defensiveness. Have you ever met someone who made you feel comfortable within minutes, not because they talked a lot or tried to impress you, but because they were present? They listened in a way that made you feel genuinely seen. And I want you to know that this ability, the ability to make others feel safe and understood, is not a natural talent. It's a habit, a skill, a way of living. I once worked with a 25-year-old who always wore headphones and avoided eye contact. When I asked why, he said, "I'm afraid of being misunderstood. I'm afraid they'll get the wrong idea about me." Those feelings are extremely common in young adults, but then he said something that stayed with me. "I want to connect. I just don't know where to start." He's not alone. Many young people today, despite being surrounded by technology and information, have lost one of the most basic human skills, connecting from the heart. We learn everything, coding, marketing, design, but no one teaches us how to be the kind of person others want to open up to. Stoicism doesn't teach you tricks to be likable or social hacks to fit in. It teaches you how to live in a way that your presence naturally brings calm to others. When you're centered, you create a centered space. When you're genuine, you invite genuineness. When you can regulate your emotions, you help the person in front of you feel safe. And in a world full of pressure, where everyone is trying so hard to look strong, just being near someone who listens without judgment can create an incredibly powerful bond. I want you to imagine a stronger version of yourself, someone who walks into a room and people instantly sense the warmth and ease you bring. Someone who speaks less but speaks deeply. Someone who listens without trying to fix or judge. Someone who connects without losing themselves. That version exists. Stoic philosophy can help you build it. In today's video, we're going to explore 10 ways to build deeper, more meaningful connections with the people around you, not through techniques, but through who you become as a person. This isn't a guide to make people like you. This is your own journey to become someone you would want to connect with. So take a slow breath, let your mind soften a little, and let's explore how Stoic wisdom can help you build real, lasting connections in this modern world. When people think about connection, they often think about communication skills, confidence, the ability to speak well or persuade others. Those things help, but they're surface level. After working with hundreds of young people, I've realized something. Real connection doesn't come from how much you say. It comes from how present you are in the moment. Connection is presence, not performance. So I want to start with the most foundational Stoic principle. A principle many young people are losing in today's digital age: listening with presence. 1. Listen with true presence. I once worked with a 23-year-old young man who told me he never felt like he belonged anywhere. Whether he was hanging out with friends, going to class, or meeting new people, he always felt like he was standing on the outside looking in. When I asked him how he usually interacts with others, he said, "I try to talk a lot so it won't feel awkward." And that right there was the problem. He was so focused on himself that he wasn't truly listening to anyone. A lot of young people fall into this trap. We listen with our mouths, not with our hearts. We listen to respond, not to understand. I gave him a simple exercise. In every conversation, just focus completely on the person in front of you. No judgment, no planning your next line, no trying to sound interesting, just be present. 3 weeks later, he said, "I didn't realize that just listening, really listening, would make people open up to me so much." Presence creates a kind of energy that makes others feel understood. Stoics believe that if you want to understand someone, you must be silent long enough to let them reveal who they are. Listening is the first bridge to connection. 2. Seek to understand others instead of proving yourself right. One of the biggest obstacles that stops young people from connecting is the ego. No one wants to be judged, no one wants to look weak, no one wants to be wrong. So in conversations, many unconsciously fall into defense mode, trying to protect their opinions at all costs. I've watched so many conversations between young people end in tension simply because everyone was trying to win. But connection doesn't come from winning. Connection comes from empathy. I once worked with a young man who was sharp, confident, and incredibly intelligent, but he struggled in almost every relationship he had. He told me, "I don't understand why people think I'm cold or unapproachable." After observing him, it became obvious. He was so smart that he constantly tried to correct other people's perspectives. He didn't realize that sometimes people don't need you to fix anything, they just need you to understand. I asked him, "Do you want to connect or do you want to be right?" A simple question, but it left him silent for a long time. When you shift from proving yourself to understanding others, you instantly become more approachable. Stoicism teaches us to loosen our ego so kindness has space to move through us. Someone who genuinely seeks to understand will always create deeper connection than someone who only wants to be impressive. 3. Communicate with sincerity and simplicity. I once worked with a young woman who had a big social media following. She looked confident, cheerful, and full of life in every photo. But she told me that, in real life, she struggled to open up. She was afraid that if people saw her real self, they'd be disappointed. I asked her, "So what is the real you?" She said quietly, "I don't know." I've tried to be perfect for too long. This is the struggle of many young people. We learn how to perform a polished version of ourselves, so when we meet others, we show up wearing a mask. And you can't build deep connection through a mask. Stoicism doesn't ask you to spill all your secrets or expose every emotion. It simply teaches that sincerity is the foundation of every meaningful relationship. Sincerity is when you're not trying to impress, it's when you're willing to say, "I don't know," or "I'm still learning," or "I really care about this." Simplicity in your words makes you relatable in a world full of performance. 4. Control your emotions so you don't hurt others. One of the biggest challenges young people face is their emotions. We get irritated easily, misunderstand easily, and react too quickly, especially when we're stressed or feeling insecure. But as I always tell my clients, emotions aren't the enemy. If you fail to control them, though, they can become the biggest barrier to connection. I once worked with a young man who constantly had conflicts with his friends. He said, "I never mean to hurt anyone, but sometimes I react way too fast." As he shared his stories, it became clear that his reactions came from feeling threatened, even though no one was actually attacking him. So we started practicing a very stoic habit: pause for a few seconds before responding. It sounds simple, but it changed everything for him. A few months later he told me, "I feel calmer now, and people seem much more comfortable around me." Connection doesn't come from fancy words, it comes from safety. When you manage your emotions, you become a place where others can feel at ease. 5. Respect boundaries, both yours and theirs. Many young people try to connect too fast. They want closeness quickly, trust quickly, understanding quickly. But any kind of rushing creates pressure. Connection is like a tree, it needs time to grow roots. Stoics understand that every relationship has its own rhythm and its own boundaries. I once had a client who felt deeply hurt whenever someone didn't reply to her messages right away. She said, "I think it means they don't like me." But the truth is, no one is obligated to be available all the time. I asked her have you ever considered that they also have their own life, their own emotions, their own limits? Respect begins with understanding that everyone has personal space they need to protect. And you do too. Strong connections don't come from clinging tightly to someone. They come from two people who feel free, respected, and not pressured. When you stop forcing closeness, you create a gentle environment where closeness can grow naturally. And when we talk about connection, most people think it's something external. But the deeper you go on this journey, the more you'll see that connection starts from the inside. It begins with how you understand yourself, how you ground yourself, and how you open your heart to others. Which brings us to the next principle: simple, quiet, but powerful enough to transform every relationship in your life. 6. Appreciate the connections you already have. One strange thing about young people today is that they often chase new relationships so much that they forget the good ones already around them. A young woman I worked with once told me she felt lonely, even though she had family, friends, and co-workers nearby. When I asked, how often do you genuinely appreciate the people who are already in your life? She went quiet. Gratitude isn't just saying thank you, it's recognizing the small, meaningful ways people contribute to your life. A friend who listens when you're tired, a co-worker who helps with something small, a loved one who sends a simple, "How are you?" To a Stoic, these aren't small things, they're the foundation of all connection. I gave her a simple exercise. Each day, recall 3 moments when someone gave you something positive, a kind word, a warm smile, a small gesture. Only 1 week later, she told me her loneliness had softened, not because her life changed, but because she finally began noticing the warmth she had ignored. Connection isn't about how many people you have around you, it's about whether you see the value in the people who are around you. When you practice gratitude, you become softer, more open, and people naturally feel appreciated when they're with you. 7. Practice unconditional kindness. In today's practical, fast-moving world, kindness is often mistaken for weakness, but in Stoicism, kindness is strength. It's a sign of an anchored mind. A kind person isn't naive or soft, they're someone who refuses to let the harshness of life turn them into someone cold. I remember a young man who came to see me after a major emotional breakdown. He said he was exhausted from being kind to people only to feel taken advantage of. I asked him, "Are you kind because you expect something back, or because it's what you believe is right?" He thought for a long time before saying, "Maybe I've been doing it for the wrong reasons." Kindness is not a transaction. It's not, "I treat you well, so you must treat me the same." Kindness is a choice that reflects your inner strength. Stoics say you only control your actions, not how others respond. When you practice kindness without conditions, you become a gentle presence in a loud and chaotic world. And the truth is, people are naturally drawn to those who bring peace instead of pressure. 8. Stop comparing yourself to others. I've worked with countless young people who share the same fear. I'm scared I'm not good enough. That fear rarely comes from reality, it comes from constant comparison. You scroll through social media and see people who seem more successful, happier, more social, more accomplished, and suddenly your own life feels small. Your confidence shrinks. Stoic philosophy reminds us of something essential. Comparison blinds you to your own path. Marcus Aurelius wrote that every person runs their own race, and watching someone else's lane only makes you stumble in yours. You cannot truly connect with others when your mind is always placing yourself below them. Jealousy, insecurity, and self-doubt block authentic connection. I once worked with a young woman who admitted she avoided becoming friends with people she admired because she always thought they'd judge her. That fear didn't just hurt her self-esteem, it cost her countless meaningful relationships. When you stop comparing, you see others as companions, not competitors. And only then can your connections become real, deep, and warm. 9. Learn to apologize and make things right quickly. Young people often avoid apologizing because they think apology means losing. But to the Stoics, apologizing is an act of strength. It means you're grounded enough to face your mistakes and mature enough to put the relationship above your ego. I remember a young man with a temper. During an argument with his best friend, he said things that cut very deep. He knew he was wrong, but didn't apologize because he wanted to save face. The result, a 10-year friendship fell apart. When he finally came to see me, he said, "If I had just admitted I was wrong, everything would have been different." He wasn't grieving the loss of a friend, he was grieving the fact that his ego cost him something precious. I told him, "A well-timed apology can save an entire relationship." He sat quietly, as if the sentence unlocked a door inside him. Over time, he learned to apologize without seeing it as a defeat, and he later told me it was liberating. It made him lighter, more mature, and easier to connect with. Apologizing is not weakness, apologizing is courage. 10. Nurture your connections with small, consistent actions. One thing I've learned after years of working with young people is this. Many want strong, lasting relationships, but they don't maintain the daily actions needed to keep them alive. Connections don't grow by themselves. They must be nurtured like a tree. I once worked with a young woman who said she had trouble keeping close friends. When I asked when she last reached out to someone first, she couldn't remember. Modern life is busy, but busyness is not an excuse to neglect the people who matter. Stoics believe in the power of small, consistent gestures. A quick message, a simple check-in, a short meetup, a heartfelt "Hey, I miss you." These tiny acts may seem insignificant, but they create a steady flow of connection. When you regularly plant small seeds of care, your relationships deepen naturally, without dramatic efforts. Because what strengthens connection isn't grand gestures, it's consistency, presence, and the quiet ways you show you care. A moment of reflection. Now that we've reached the end of this journey, I want you to pause for a few seconds and check in with yourself. Maybe you've realized that connection isn't about social skills. It's not about being charismatic. It's not about getting attention. Connection, at its deepest level, is about how you show up in this life, how you see others, and how you see yourself. I've met so many young people who came to therapy for the same simple reason. They felt lonely in a world full of people. But the more I worked with them, the clearer it became that their loneliness didn't come from lack of conversation. It came from not being connected to the most authentic version of themselves. When you don't understand yourself, you'll struggle to understand others. When you're not at peace with your own complexities, you'll always feel like an outsider in every relationship. And this is exactly what Stoic philosophy can offer you. Stoicism doesn't teach you to be cold. It teaches you to be clear. Clear about your emotions, clear about your values, clear about what you can control, and what you need to let go of. When you gain clarity, you gain freedom. And when you're free, connection becomes effortless. I had a young client who told me something after months of practicing Stoicism. I'm not trying to be liked anymore. I'm just trying to become someone I would want to be friends with. That sentence has stayed with me for years, because it captures the heart of connection. You can't build meaningful relationships by trying to be the version of yourself that you think others want. The most beautiful connections happen when you're brave enough to show up as who you really are, calm, genuine, and unpretentious. I hope that when you close this video, you don't just take away 10 principles. I hope you feel a small shift inside your heart. A little warmth as you think about the people who have walked beside you. A little courage to open up to someone new. A little peace when you look in the mirror and see someone slowly becoming a better version of themselves. If anything I've shared resonated with you, even just a little, I want to invite you to be part of the community we're building here at Stoic Awakening More. This isn't just a YouTube channel, it's a place you belong. A place you can return to when your mind feels rushed, when your emotions get noisy, or when you simply need a soft reminder that you're not walking this journey alone. If this video brought you value, hit the like button and share it with someone who might need it today. It lets me know that what I'm doing is making a difference somewhere out there. Subscribe if you want to continue this Stoic journey with me, gently, slowly, and steadily. And if you have a moment, leave a comment below. Which of the 10 principles spoke to you the most? Which one do you want to start practicing today? I read every message, every story, and I'm always grateful for the chance to walk alongside you. Thank you for spending your time here, thank you for opening your heart, and thank you for having the courage to walk this path toward inner peace with us. I'll see you in the next video, where we'll keep exploring how Stoic philosophy can help you live deeper, stronger, and more connected each day.